And welcome to episode 28 of the Actual Astronomy podcast. This episode, I don't know if you saw the Shane, I labeled it The Darkness is Coming episode.
I did see that. It kind of reminded me of Game of Thrones a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. But, it really isn't a joke here because from about the first week-ish of June until the second week-ish of July, we don't really have dark skies.
That's right. Yeah, the perpetual twilight sets in, centered around the longest day of the year on June 21st. And during that time, we really don't gain an advantage or much of an advantage leaving light polluted skies. It's just not worth it.
No, it really isn't. If you happen to be somewhere, that's great, but there actually is no real darkness to be had of any length. If you do go out somewhere dark, you will see significant sky brightening over the vast majority of the sky, and only to the very south are you going to have anything that resembles darkness. And then it's a pretty small swath of sky, and it's sort of you're able to read your star charts with the bright north to your back. It's not bad. It's just it's a very short period of time too where there is anything like darkness, and it's not totally dark much at all there. So it's go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure if we ever really explained why that's so important to us too. Like, the things that you can look at under skies that aren't very dark are very limited. It's the moon, it's the planets, and some double stars. If you really want to see detail or the full extent of galaxies, nebulas, and star clusters, you need dark skies. If they're too bright, all of those the details really get washed out. And in some cases, you can't even observe dimmer galaxies, nebula, or clusters because of how bright the sky is. So that's why we're always chasing dark skies, and why this time right now around June 21st just doesn't appeal to us.
Yeah, I personally find it kind of neat. I didn't grow up here. I do struggle with the going into this period of time because I don't know whether it's part of my natural evolution or what. My peoples come from a very cloudy place, like extremely cloudy. And I find when we're getting into like that May-June timeframe, my body clock rhythm goes haywire. And I really struggle with actually getting proper sleep. I end up up at weird times, down at weird times, and can't sleep when I want to sleep, feel like sleeping when I shouldn't want to be sleeping. I find it really disruptive for both I guess it's from about the second week of May until about the second week of June. And then about now, I start feeling pretty good again. So I feel like I'm getting back into the rhythm. We're starting to get some darkness, and it's really starting to feel good. But tonight, I was just looking at the calendar here while we were sitting here, and I didn't put it in anything, and this probably won't go out in time, but tonight is the full moon. So there's always that too, we're not really observing so much during the full moon. When the moon is full, the sky's too bright still, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And it's fine for some backyard observing, but it's just not worth the effort to travel out of town.
Speaking of backyard observing, it was great to have a beer with you in my backyard yesterday.
Yeah, it was. I got a little too much sun. I was a little pink on the forehead afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I should have offered you some sunscreen. So, and I was saying how much I enjoy the heat. Where I'm from, it's very cloudy, very foggy. We don't get really nice warm days like this, and I love them. I do. Yes, I in fact ended up a little pink in a few spots myself. So don't think that I'm not there with you on that one.
Yeah, but it is nice to feel the warmth. That's for sure.
Oh man, let me tell you, like the summers here in Saskatchewan. I mean, people don't know this, like we live in Canada, and most of Canada can have good weather. Where I'm from in Canada, maybe a little less so. Fall is nice in Eastern Canada. But out here in Saskatchewan, those May, June, July, August, September months are they're just unbelievably beautiful. You know, and it's funny, people always ask, like, well, why did you move to Saskatchewan? And I kind of had heard this. I knew somebody, I worked with somebody who was from Saskatoon, and they had told me this, and other people I know, like Rick and others, had told me how nice the summers were. And you kind of don't believe it because you don't hear that. Like, nobody ever says, like, oh, like Saskatchewan, that's the place to be in the summer. Like, if you like summer, that's the place to go. And you'd think they were, you know, if you're from the other parts of Canada, you'd think that person was telling you like a tale or something. But man, I can't believe how good the summers are here. They are gorgeous.
Well, I think Estevan, Saskatchewan receives the most sunlight hours during a calendar year than anywhere else in Canada, I believe.
Yeah, and you know, I hear that there's places in Alberta that give it a run for its money. But the one thing that I notice is this: it's sort of like Saskatchewan really is, and you know, we're not being sponsored by the Saskatchewan Tourism Board or anything like that. but yeah, it's one of those places it's not on people's radar, especially for like a summer vacation. Like, but I did know somebody who came here for a summer vacation when that Corner Gas show was filmed, and they said how amazing it was here in the summer. But in Alberta, they get more of that cold weather from the mountains in the summer. It can be cooler. I saw the other day it was snowing in places high up, but not that high up, like in Jasper, where I've gone and done some astronomy events. It was snowing at some pretty low elevations, and at Jasper town proper, their daytime high was 9 degrees, while we were sitting at a very balmy 28 degrees and sunny. Oof. And then over Manitoba, not to knock Manitoba, but they get a lot more humidity than we get. We get some, but our humidity tends to be fleeting. So we get really good weather for astronomy here for 4 or 5 months a year, and it's just amazing. It's just unfortunate we lose a month of that because of their perpetual twilight. So we're really looking forward to getting out under some dark skies. But yesterday you were over. We had a good conversation. I see today or maybe it was late last night, we've passed 1,600 downloads. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's really good to see. It's, you know, people are still listening. So I guess we must provide some level of entertainment. That's good.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if I should mention this or not, but I think you've been looking at putting some sort of store up with some shirts and that. You and I actually wanted to get some shirts just for fun.
yeah, you know, some shirts to wear when we're out observing, and maybe some toques. You know, we do have some costs to put this podcast out there. They're minimal, but you know, if we can also sell a couple t-shirts and put that money towards just the, you know, recouping some of the costs that we'll have on an annual basis, that's great. It's just another fun thing to do. So
yeah, and I think it'd be fun. Like, mostly I'm just like looking to buy a t-shirt myself. I think the logo is pretty cool that you made up, and you know, so we'll work that out. We'll figure a way on the cost, and then, and if we put it up anyway, we might as well make it available. But I think one thing that we're looking at, maybe the reason why I'm mentioning it is, as we chatted on yesterday, is we're kind of going to get some of the stuff ourselves. We're gonna buy it, and then make sure like we're happy with the quality in that kind of before we really put it out there too much. Because I think it's important that whatever we put out is good. But I think you looked at a pretty reputable manufacturer, distributor, or whatever it is. So I'm excited. I think it'd be fun to get some shirts, and then maybe as we start looking into having like guest people on the show, then we can just order some extra shirts or like order them and send them off to those people and that kind of stuff. And then we can just make it available to other people as well. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see. So you dropped something off and you picked something up. What did you drop off and what did you pick up?
It seems like all of our meetings the last couple of months, it's, you know, each one of us gets something new to take home.
Yeah.
So I dropped off that 80 millimeter Meade telescope that I did a little surgery on a couple weeks ago or a week ago to try to fix the pinched optics.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, as well as like just blackening those lens edges. So I gave that back to you. Hopefully you can give that a star test and let me know what you think. I'm curious to see if you think it's improved at all.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this as well, and look forward to doing that. I think you said it still had a bit of a optical alignment or a collimation challenge with it, though.
That's what I thought, but I'm no expert at reading star tests. To me, it looked like a collimation issue, but I'm curious to see if you can validate that or diagnose it as something else.
Yeah, I think that's almost par for the course. Especially where I did some pretty major surgery to the telescope before it went into your hands too, and so probably a combination of everything could have moved things slightly off center, and I don't think it's going to be that big a challenge. I think like all you do is pull the focuser out, and then you can just put like tape in or like something in on one side, just kind of move it a bit and then see if that does the trick, and then if it seems to improve it, then you just kind of layer up on tape on one side. But that tube, like I think I told you, it was so far out of round when I replaced the focuser. Like it was an oval. It looked like the orbit of Pluto, right? I mean, it was way out of round, right? So
Yeah.
I'm guessing that maybe that's it. So if that is the case, then I might just be able to kind of fudge it. But as always, I've got another 80 millimeter identical to that coming here sometime in July. So there's a chance, and I got it for $30. So I figure I'll try that too if I can't get this one to work, and then because I think the optics on this Meade one are excellent for a $99 telescope. So pretty excited
Oh,
about that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, they're fantastic for the price.
Yeah, and mostly we're looking to use it at very low power with some of our low power eyepieces, and to use it in suboptimal public outreach conditions once we're back up and running next year with doing our public outreach and education out in the national parks and that sort of thing. So that if we do have like these nights, where you get the odd little rain shower that comes through, well, we don't like having the Takahashis out in those conditions. That always seems a little bit sketchy. And then, if we can just simply pull out one or two of these and use these for those times, I think, it'd be a lot better. So yeah, be pretty good. Just kind of floater scopes and knockarounds and whatever.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I left you with the 80 millimeter, and then
Yes.
I walked away with two items from your
Yes.
equipment collection.
Yeah. I mean, between the two of us, like it's like we've got a lot of weird and wacky gear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
we do.
what did you pick up from my hoard?
So I picked up I guess it would be called a 2-inch visual back. So my Takahashi that I recently purchased, the 76 millimeter, can only take or accept 1.25 accessories because
Mm-hmm.
that's the size of the visual back on it. Now, the focuser tube itself,
Now, can I just hop in here? Because
yeah,
visual
yeah, yeah.
back is one of those things that I heard a lot about when I get into astronomy, and it sounds like it's this super complicated thing. This thing is basically just a ring. It looks like, I mean, this one that I lent you kind of looks like a small tire, really is what it looks like. And it's got threads on one side, and those threads thread into the focuser threads that are on the Takahashi focuser. And you can also get them that thread into Schmidt screens and other optical systems. You just have to make sure that you buy the ones with the right threads, and that can be a little bit of a of a challenge to figure out some time. But I went through that process, so I got one, lend it to you. So you just plug in your diagonals to this. So your diagonal is the 90-degree part that has a little mirror in it that angles the light path, so it's easier to look through refractors or Schmidt screens or compound telescopes. So that's all this thing does, is it just allows you to attach your regular accessories. But this one's slightly bigger, eh? So when it threads on it, it will allow you to use the 2-inch. Anyway, you take it from there.
Yeah, yeah, good description. So I wanted to borrow this for a couple of reasons. One, I just wanted to see if all of my eyepieces would still come to focus with this thing added onto the telescope.
Mm-hmm.
And check mark there. My 2-inch eyepieces have no problem focusing, and same with all my eyepieces will come to focus, which is great. The other thing that I was concerned about, and you had sent me a link on this just as I was kind of in the process of purchasing the 76 millimeter, and that's that eyepieces with a field stop, I think greater than 33 millimeters, will vignette, which means like kind of the edge will darken
Mm-hmm.
because the light path is too narrow to fully illuminate the field of view in the eyepiece.
Yeah.
And I was curious of, how sensitive my eye is to that and if it's something I could tolerate.
Yeah. What'd you find out?
Well, I haven't done it under a dark sky yet, but I think it's probably more noticeable during a daytime sky. I
Hmm.
might be wrong on that,
I think you're
but
right. Yeah.
but I looked at just blue sky. So the two eyepieces that I tested that will that are my maximum field of view or maximum field stops. One is a 31 millimeter Nagler, and then the other one is a 41 millimeter Panoptic. Both made by Teleview, both providing wide field views. The 41 millimeter, in fact, provides, I believe, the widest field of view one can achieve with a 2-inch eyepiece.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah. So on a blue sky, I didn't notice a lot, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
there's a little bit of darkness on the edge, and I felt it was more pronounced in the Nagler, which is surprising because the field stop is wider
Hmm.
on the Panoptic. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to bother me too much. I'll test it under a dark sky to see what I think. But anyway, I'm pleased with the results, and I think I'll be ordering one of those 2-inch visual backs because everything looks okay.
Yeah, and so this is one of those things where sometimes what you read on the internet you have to take with a grain of salt. Hopefully, that's not news to everybody.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I had kind of read that, and I sort of paid the ultimate price for the experiment because I have a custom made Starlight Instruments Feather Touch focuser, which are pretty custom focusers, but I really had this one customized, as you know.
mhm,
Um, and so that one I have, and I know that it does not vignette in any of these Takahashis. So I wanted to make 100% certain. So I love wide field observing. I just wanted to make sure it was 100% not compromised. In the end, it probably still is somewhat compromised in the same way as this, but you can't tell visually. And then after I got this all working with the 100 millimeter too, I already had this focuser, but I was able to get it working with the 100 millimeter. And I kind of thought, well, it'd be nice to be able to run both of these telescopes. They're such great telescopes. I'd like to be able to run both the 60 and the 100 at the same time. And I looked at getting like a 1.25 diagonal for the 60, but a good quality one was going to run me more than getting one of these adapters, because these adapters, I could be wrong, but I think they're like around $45 or $50 or 40 or 50 euros or something.
yeah.
And
I think in Canadian it's closer to 100, but still,
still,
compared to the
yes.
cost
So
of diagonal of good quality, for
yeah,
sure.
I think a good quality diagonal is going to be maybe like 150. I'm kind of speaking at a turn here, but really a good quality 1.25 inch diagonal costs almost or about the same as a 2 inch. So, the reason why you get it is only if your telescope accepts 1.25. So anyway, I thought, well, you know what? And I did read some places where people had used them and kind of had rebutted that, fact that the vignetting is that much and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, since I love looking at the planets so much anyway, if I can just use my 2-inch gear with the 60 and I'm looking at planets from my deck or driveway or street or something, well, that's like a less expensive alternative, and as you know, I'm looking at buying a parcel of land to do astronomy on. So trying to save every dollar I can right now.
Yeah, for sure. So I was very pleased with that. I'm excited to convert my 76 into a 2-inch telescope. Um, so maybe I'll close the chapter there on that piece of gear. And then the other one that I picked up from you is a very highly desirable eyepiece
Hmm.
for people that are seeking the utmost detail and contrast, particularly with planets. And it is the Pentex XO 5.1 millimeter. They were available probably in the early to mid 2000s, I believe.
Yeah.
And then there was a short production run on those things, and now you can't find them brand new anymore. They're really only available on the used market, and prices just continually escalate, every year because there's such a demand for these things, and people
I
just
should
aren't
have bought
selling them.
more.
I should have never have sold mine, is what I should have done.
Well, in retrospect now, I think it's good you sold yours because you've been able to get some other equipment and really neat stuff. And in a way, the eyepiece is, I mean, it's a little bit lost on me because I need to wear glasses when I observe, and this is really an eyepiece where you can't wear glasses when you observe. But for certain situations, I do like having this, and since I already own it, it's probably going to be. I have this and one of the other rare ones, which is the 3.79 XP. I just like having them. I think they're really neat. They're kind of collector's items. I'm not really a collector, but for these, I have a bit of a soft spot for the Pentax stuff because I have the big 5-inch Pentax apochromat. So then when I'm using these, I'm Pentax through and through on the planets, and those images are really, really nice when I feel like using them. And I put lots of usage on them, but like I said to you the other day, it's been some time since I have used that one. So, might as well lend it to you for a while, when I want it back or whatever. And you've traded me off a 5mm eyepiece anyway. So I feel like I kind of owe you on that one.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to observe through that again. Like when I did own that eyepiece, I really did enjoy the views through it.
Yeah, it's nice.
But since then, I've acquired 2 other 5mm eyepieces. So essentially, I want to do a little bit of a comparison or an eyepiece shootout between these 3 5mm. So the Pentax XO, then recently acquired that TMB 5mm super monocentric eyepiece, which is another one that's no longer made, but highly desirable. Some consider it to be the best 5mm eyepiece in the world for contrast and detail, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the third one is, again, an eyepiece that's no longer made. And this is a 0.965-inch eyepiece. So it requires an adapter, but it's a Nikon 5mm orthoscopic eyepiece that Thomas Back, this is in the early 2000s, had said that's the best planetary eyepiece he's ever looked through. So, between you and I, we have 3 of the rarer and more desirable 5mm eyepieces in the world. So I think it will be kind of fun and maybe somewhat beneficial to do a little bit of a comparison between all 3 and just see how they compare.
Yeah, I think what we should do, I'm gonna, I didn't mention this. Like we aren't very heavily scripted on this podcast, to say the least. We have notes that we go by just to make sure we stay a little bit on track, but we do go off track quite a bit. But I'm thinking maybe you should do it. You run your test, whatever you feel is sufficient for however long you feel is sufficient, and then maybe I can run a test, and then we could do a podcast again, unscripted, where we just kind of compare notes.
Love it. Yeah, let's do that for sure.
I think that would be really fun. I mean, we'll probably mention a few things to each other sort of offline, but the one thing, and you and I were talking quite a bit about this yesterday, is that this kind of focuses down, sort of, pardon the pun, our astronomy in a way. Like the other night, I was tired and sort of bleary-eyed from a long day in front of the computer working, and then I was like, but I'm doing the podcast, and I really should be out observing anyway. And so I went out and I did some astronomy for just like half an hour or so, but it's really nice, and then I have more valid things to talk about, and I should be doing more astronomy, or as much astronomy as possible anyway. So, pretty much any given clear night, either you're out, I'm out, or we're both out now, I think, since we started doing this. We're pretty close to it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Good segue.
Yeah.
We were both out this week. What did you see?
Yeah. So that was like the next item. Sorry. I had a short session on the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. The seeing was horrible. So I was using the 5mm you lent me, which is not one of these super rare ones. It's a rare one, I think. It's a Nikon 5mm. Is it called a SW?
NAVSW.
NAVSW, yeah. And you kind of said that you hadn't liked it as much, I think. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what did you think of it?
The optics are fantastic on that eyepiece. They're crisp. The field of view is sharp to the edge. It's a really nice eyepiece. What I found with my 76mm telescope is that eye placement was really critical. If I just wasn't perfectly centered over the eyepiece, it kind of blacked out on me. and that drives me nuts. Now, that eyepiece I've used in my 100 millimeter telescope and some other 60 millimeter telescopes, and it doesn't black out. So it might just be an issue with the 76. I don't know. I have to probably run it through a few more paces.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it could even be, I don't know. I have a few theories, but really they're just theories. But it is odd because your 76 is a 76 millimeter f 7.5, and then my Takahashi, which is same, like we ordered them same day, I think,
Mm-hmm.
or within 24 hours of each other. Anyway, same vintage, sort of similar production runs, and it's 100 millimeter f 7.4. So honestly, Shane, I can't tell the difference between 7.4 and 7.5. Maybe you can, but
Nope.
but when I use this eyepiece in my 100 millimeter f 7.4, wow, it is fantastic. I really like it. And I'm using a Barlow 10 millimeter. I'm borrowing a 10 millimeter Pentax XW for 5 millimeter, and I got to say this really does outperform that by quite a hefty margin. So yeah, I'm really impressed with it quite a bit. I haven't tried the 5 millimeter XW yet. That was on my potential purchase list. I was actually considering getting the Teleview Delight 5 millimeter, but I don't know now. I don't know. It's going to be a hard decision. I got my mount coming here in a few weeks, so once I get that and see how the tracking is, then then we'll see what kind of eyepiece I go with. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. So the seeing was horrible, like absolutely.
Is part of that, sorry, is part of that just because Jupiter and Saturn were so low in the sky?
I think so. But the sky was really churned up like that night. That was the night. I think you and I talked about it before, where sometimes like you're on the north west of the city, I'm on the southeast of the city. So and it's far enough apart that sometimes you can be fairly clouded out or have very different conditions. Because the night before you said you were out observing, and I was out for a walk, but the conditions weren't such that I could set up and observe. So our conditions can vary that much, which is a little bit strange. This was another one of those nights, and I was out, and the sky was just roiled, like boiled up so bad. I could only use the 7 millimeter, and when I was looking at Saturn through the 7 millimeter, it gives me just over 100 power, 105 power, I think. Like it was actually moving, like just from the atmosphere back and forth, pretty much an entire like diameter of like the disc and ring.
Wow.
Like it was the sky was just like, when you go to like the fun park or the science park or whatever, and they have like the big piece of metal that whatever it is, that's what the sky reminded me of, or like a funhouse mirror that someone's bending or something. It was brutal.
Wow. Yeah. You can't do much observing in conditions like that.
No, so the moon was up, and the moon didn't look so bad. The moon was much higher, so it's going to be less impacted. And I'm only using 105 power. I thought, well, I'm not a really big lunar observer anyway, but it's really nice to look at it. I thought, well, I sit on the National Observing Committee for the RASC, and I thought, oh, somebody was talking about observing the moon with glasses on, or sunglasses on. So I thought, I'm going to go do this just for fun. And it was really bright. I'd looked at it before, and I was like, oh, wow, it's really, really bright. So I'm going to put my sunglasses on. So I put my sunglasses on. I go out, I'm looking at the moon. I have a good view. I can't really tell you what I was looking at so much, but it's fun. Just look at the moon and look at all those craters, and you really feel like you're in a spaceship kind of orbiting around. You can see a lot of craters through a 100 millimeter telescope. And I turned around, and there was noctilucent clouds, these bright night shining clouds that we've talked about a few times. And they were so bright that I could see them with my sunglasses on at night.
Yeah, we were treated to 2 nights of noctilucent this week that were really fantastic again. July 1st, Canada Day, they were out that night. And then the next night, July 2nd, they were out again. And so I observed them both nights. In fact, on our Twitter feed, at Actual Astronomy, I retweeted an Alan Dyer photo, and basically his photo showed what kind of Western Canada would have saw that night, in terms of the noctilucent clouds. So check that out, just so you kind of get an understanding of what we're talking about. they were just so bright. And keep in mind, like if you do look at that photograph, that's probably around 10:30 at night when that was taken. So like there's no sun. Because when you look at the photo, you kind of like when I first saw noctilucent cloud photos, I thought, who cares? Like that's just a photo of clouds.
Yeah.
But when you add like, no, that's at night when there's no sun, it becomes, a far more amazing picture to think about.
Yeah.
But what I did on July the 2nd when I was out, I was looking at the moon through my telescope, and probably around 9:30, I looked to the north, and it was completely clear skies. There was not anything in the sky at all, no cloud, and I was wondering if we would get some noctilucent clouds coming. So I stopped looking at the moon, and I started to notice like, sort of some brightening of the sky, like little patches of brightening. And it reminded me a little bit of aurora coming in when we've been out observing. You'll see some faint hints of aurora starting to appear, and then they slowly brighten over time. And that's what happened on July the 2nd, was the sky, as it sort of darkened a little bit, these noctilucent clouds just like appeared out of nowhere. And yesterday when you and I were talking about it in your backyard, I think you used the term, it was kind of ghostly.
Yeah.
And
Very, very, they're very strange looking. Eh? Like they don't look like usual clouds. And then the motion's kind of odd too. Like they don't typically go like usually when you're looking at clouds, at least here in the part of North America we live in, the clouds come from the west and go to the east in this more or less general direction. But these ones don't really quite do that.
no, they travel the other direction, east to west. Um, yeah, so they were quite bright, quite interesting. Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I had to cough, so I paused it. You must have heard like me like blank out or something. I should just cough. We're not supposed to do any editing or anything. It's like as soon as we start doing it, it becomes like distracting. Wait, some sort of editing is taking place here. But no, I had to cough a bit.
No, that's good. I just wanted to make sure we hadn't lost you.
No.
Yeah, so the noctilucent were great. I did look at the moon a couple times this last week. Yeah, seeing wasn't fantastic. I wasn't able to really push the magnification. But, you mentioned kind of like spaceship-like views, when you're, seeing all this detail.
On the moon, yeah.
Yeah, on the moon. And what I really enjoy is like somewhat of a higher powered eyepiece, like a 5 mm.
Mm-hmm.
But that's wide field. And you really do, at least I feel like I kind of get that, spaceship portal feeling, of what it might look like to be orbiting, somewhat over the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and just looking down and seeing all of that detail. And I feel too, at least with this 76 TAC, I get this sensation far more than any other telescope. But when I hit, that 7 mm to 5 mm eyepiece range, it just takes on so much more of a three-dimensional view
Yeah.
than anything else I've experienced in any of my other telescopes. I don't know if you've had that sensation either, but
Yeah. No, for sure. And yeah, it's amazing what these small telescopes will show. Like I remember my first view of the moon through a telescope was at the St. Mary's Observatory in Halifax. And they've got I think it's like a 16-inch pure Cassegrain, and it was 3 floors above where I used to lay my head. So it was kind of convenient. And it was just when I was kind of getting to have a bit of an interest in astronomy. So I knew a few people on my floor that were actually, I never have taken an astronomy course. I've taught several dozen, but I've never actually taken one. And I would go up there when they were doing their labs. And I remember going up and like looking at the moon and just being like blown away by the detail you could see in the 16 inch. And this is a huge rooftop observatory set up at a large university. And well, I shouldn't say St. Mary's really isn't that large university. It's a sizable university with, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12,000 students. But yeah, then you get these little telescopes, and really the view is pretty much just as good. It's amazing.
yeah, for sure.
So you were able to get out and do some solar observing as well this week. Do you want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah. I was out on July 1st on Canada Day. That it's a national holiday up here in Canada. And then on July the 2nd, I was back to working, but working from home. So it was a clear day. I set the telescope up on the back patio, and then during my lunch break and after work, I did a little observing. And man, July the 2nd was fantastic. Um, so I was using my hydrogen alpha telescope. I tweeted a picture out of that telescope, so people can get a sense of what that thing looks like.
Yeah, and again, people should not look at the sun unless you're using some sort of really specialized equipment that you know and have been trained on to use, because looking at the sun without proper training, without proper filtration, will result in blindness, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we always have to give that warning. And Shane, you are one of the best solar observers that I know. I'm not really that much of a solar observer, so I really enjoy that you have this equipment, and I've enjoyed looking through it on a few occasions.
Yeah, it is fun. So what I did, there's an amazing imager, solar imager, that posts his images to cloudynights.com. So in our Twitter feed, I linked to photos that he captured that day. I think I said, though, the first photo in the thread is what I saw, and I don't think I linked it quite correctly. If you scroll down to the third post in that thread, the first photo there is essentially what I saw through my little telescope, but not quite as much surface detail. But when I look at the sun, I'm most curious about the prominences, and prominences are around the edge of the solar disk, and they can take on any kind of shape. And it's some of the surface material being ejected from the sun or flaring up. So they can sometimes be very dynamic. There's two classes. There's a quiescent, and then there's active. The quiescent prominences, they're kind of static, and there was a really strong display of some quiescent curtains that day. But then on the kind of almost on the other side of it, there is like what's considered like an eruptive prominence, which is active. So it changes its appearance over the course of minutes or hours. So you can watch it evolve throughout the day, and it was just incredible. Again, the detail that I was able to see through this little 35 millimeter hydrogen alpha telescope, it was a lot of fun. I do enjoy watching things through a telescope that change in front of your eyes, because most of the stuff we look at doesn't change. It's like that for in our entire lives. The Andromeda Galaxy, or the Great Orion Nebula really will not change in our lifetime in terms of its appearance.
Right.
So it's kind of neat to see some of these dynamic objects like this.
Yeah, and I really think that if somebody is really interested in looking at the sun, to seek out other amateurs and take a look through one of these telescopes, because like they really show you the sun, and I think it's worth there's a bit of a cost to entering this type of observing, but it seems worth it to me. So. And you were mentioning in the notes here, I'm just looking at the last note here, that there's this comet NEOWISE has survived perihelion, and it's getting brighter. Now, is this the one that's in the southern hemisphere that is coming to the north, or am I getting that mixed up?
Yeah, you're right. We talked about it, I think, in our July Outlook podcast. That there was this comet. It's NEOWISE C2020 F3. People were hopeful that this thing could brighten and become a fairly bright comet. However, it hadn't gone through perihelion yet. So perihelion is when the comet has its closest approach to the sun. And anybody that's followed comets in the past will know that that's a very dangerous time for the comet. And most of them don't actually survive perihelion. They either get sucked into the sun and completely disappear, or because of all of the heat and gravity associated, they just burst apart and become very insignificant comets, I guess, or objects at that point.
Just one thing I was thinking of, just and I didn't know this was in the thing today, but do you ever watch them on the Soho? Is Soho still operating? Okay, so Soho is this it's an observatory it's a satellite that's between. I think it's actually about the halfway distance between the sun and the Earth, but it's not quite between the sun and the Earth. It's sort of on a different orbit, maybe the other side, or 90 degrees to our orbit or something. But anyway, so it actually watches the sun, but you can actually see the comets as they round it just on your computer by going to like I think it's just if you type in NASA SOHO Comet, you should get to the right page there for doing that. So did you take a look and see if this one was on there?
No, I didn't. I guess I should have. I didn't even think of that actually.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of it now. So yeah,
Yeah, that might be neat to check out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it survived perihelion, and there's been a number of observations over the last couple of days. And for just about anybody, I think you have to see it early in the morning. But I'm reading a report from somebody on cloudy nights, estimated the magnitude to be about 2.6.
Yeah, it's pretty bright.
It's pretty bright, but a lot of people are saying it's a little tricky to find, and you probably need binoculars.
So whereabouts is it right now?
Let's take a look.
Because it's probably coming up into like sort of a brighter sky. Well, here the sky is brighter right now anyway, but as we get on for a couple of weeks, our sky will get dark. So hopefully, as our sky is darkening, hopefully it's going to be rising up into that sky. But when it's hugging the horizon, then yeah, you're right. It will be much easier to find using something like a little handheld, 7x35 or 7x50 or 8x40 binoculars, like the ones that we usually recommend. So, any luck finding it there, Shane?
Just looking it up. People are saying that the nucleus, so that's kind of the ball of the comet.
Yeah, the main part.
Yeah, the main part is stellar looking, meaning it looks like a bit of a star. But apparently the tail is quite bright. And there's been some sketches as well on cloudy nights that show like a dual tail, almost two equal tails kind of coming off of it. Here we go. Sorry, I'm just
no worries. I'm just like trying to look.
You can,
while you hear me type it, I'm like finder chart.
Constellation Auriga.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's in the north. So for us, we're going to be pretty challenged by that here. Yeah, I'm just taking a look here as well. I guess on Sky and Telescope, it says skyandtelescope.org. Did they change their URL? I guess they must have. And they actually have a picture from the SOHO satellite. So if you go to skyandtelescope.com and go into their astronomy news, you can actually see it there. And they have the picture of it going by the sun. And that's pretty cool. And then down below, yeah, you can see it sort of coming out and going into Lynx. Looks like it's heading over in towards, not quite Camelopardalis, but in that general region of the sky. So let's see, there's July, and coming into August, it's going to be into the bottom of Ursa Major. So probably, yeah, coming up here over, the next couple of weeks. I mean, that should be pretty good during the dark sky moon period, because I see it's going to be in Lynx on about the 15th. Looks like it'd be well placed. So what's the prognosis for how bright it would be at that point in time, or do you know?
What is this distance? I'm just looking for an estimated magnitude.
Oh, I'm seeing its estimated magnitude today is 0.6, followed by 0.8 on the 7th, so it could fade quick. Yeah, I'm not seeing what the other ones.
Yeah, it looks like max magnitude is probably tomorrow, July 6th.
Yeah, full moon here, so.
Yeah, and then, but not dropping off significantly. Like, by the time new moon, it still is probably around a magnitude 5 or 6, which, 6 is getting to be, a bit dimmer, and you'll probably want some optical aid for sure. But, still at magnitude 6, a telescope or binoculars will show it off quite nicely.
Yeah, and like I'm saying, skyandtelescope.org has under their astronomy news section some pretty good images and some pretty good finder charts. They've got another comet down there, as well as some links to noctilucent clouds. So all on that page. Yeah, good work, Sky and Telescope. Really like Sky and Telescope.
That's great. And maybe the last thing I'll say about this comet is they're highly unpredictable. So nobody really knows what will happen, how bright they will get, how the tail will evolve. So take as many observations of this as you can. And the neat thing too is you can kind of watch it evolve over the course of a few evenings or a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, I think David Levy, famous Canadian comet discoverer who lives in Arizona, has said it best, and that's that comets are like cats in that they both have tails and do whatever they want, or something to that effect. I'm probably misquoting him, but I think more or less that's how he's phrased it. So yeah, excellent. Well, anything else to add on this episode 28 of the Actual Astronomy podcast?
No, sir. That is all I have.
All right. How can people get in touch with us if they so choose or wish to reach out and congratulate us on such a great episode, as one person recently did? Really appreciate that. That's really awesome. Or like maybe people have questions, or certainly if people have criticisms as well, we're happy to receive all that too. So how can they get in touch with us?
You can find us on Twitter. We are at Actual Astronomy. Or you can email us. We are actualastronomy@gmail.com.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks so much, Shane. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Bye.